Is a miracle-performing Yanuka rabbi Israel's false messiah or the false prophet? Last week, we reported how several of Israel's leading rabbis have stated that they've been in contact with a man whom they claim is Israel's Messiah and who claims he is the Messiah. But they haven't identified him. But many Christians are suspecting this person, a rabbi known as Shlomo Yehuda Be'eri. He may be the one. He is certainly the most celebrated rabbi in Israel, someone the Orthodox community there is calling the Yanuka. Not the Messiah just yet, not a prophet just yet, but the Yanuka. Now, Yanuka is an Aramaic term given to rabbis who are both child prodigies, in other words, they come by their knowledge of the Torah early, and extremely proficient in the Torah and the Talmud. The Talmud being the non-canonical, non-biblical writings of the rabbis over the centuries to help explain Judaism and their practices. This guy is said to have memorized the entire Torah, and now miracles are being attributed to him. In fact, 5 have been. And we're going to talk about those 5 today and what Scripture says about false prophets, false messiahs, miracles, etc. Now, this guy is gaining a lot of prominence in Israel, with many high-level Jewish rabbis and the Jewish people who are just in awe of him and seeking him out for his knowledge. I mean, he is almost reaching cult status in Israel, and people like that are so in awe of him can easily be swayed to elevate him to even loftier status. Now, this doesn't make him the Messiah. Jesus, or Yeshua in Hebrew, is the Messiah of Israel. He is God who came in the form of man in a human body, was murdered for our sins, and rose from the dead, proving that he was God. He is the only intermediary between God and man. So anyone the Jews are claiming is a Messiah is a false Messiah. Okay, and even if Shlomo Yehuda announces himself as a Messiah, false Messiah, that doesn't make him the Antichrist. He became known to Christians about 1.5 years ago, and at that time there was this huge online concern that he would be the Antichrist, but Jesus said there would be multiple false prophets and false messiahs. So anyone who claims to be a Messiah shouldn't automatically be thought of as the man of sin. Rather, as we learn in 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 3 and 4, the way we identify the Antichrist is that he will sit in the holy place of God, likely the temple, and proclaim himself to be God. Only the Antichrist will do this. And it is the only way we can know who is and who isn't the Antichrist. The fact this guy is kind of thin, wears glasses, doesn't look like what you would think the Antichrist would be, is immaterial. Absolutely immaterial. What matters is who sits in the temple. And that obviously hasn't happened. So we shouldn't be thinking this guy is the Antichrist. Now, back in 2021 that we were talking about, when this Shlomo Yehuda, the Yanuka, first burst on the Christian scene, 2 well-known online prophecy teachers were very insistent that Christians were mistaken to call this guy the Antichrist, wrong to say he could even be a false Messiah, and that it was offensive to the Jewish community to even insinuate that he was a Jewish Messiah. Now, you may have seen this video. I think these online teachers were very well-meaning. They minister in Israel and wanted to maintain relations with the Orthodox community. And they were right that Christians shouldn't rush in and say this guy is a false Messiah or an Antichrist until we have proof, until it's announced. However, I think they were very wrong to suggest that we shouldn't keep our eyes on him and alert Christians about him. This is exactly what watchmen are to do. Jesus said there will be many false messiahs or false prophets. In Mark chapter 13, verse 22, it says, for false Christs, plural, and false prophets, plural, will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. And now that the Yanuka is being accredited with doing signs and wonders, like we're going to talk about in just a minute, well, that makes it more important than ever that we watch this character. Because in the last days, there will be false signs and false miracles being performed. So people like this Yanuka, are exactly who Christians should be watching. People who are respected, almost revered, to whom miracles are being attributed. Also, we have rabbis saying there is a Messiah in Israel. If it isn't this guy, it's someone else. You know, if the Jewish rabbis are offended, well, they're the ones promoting this false Messiah, whether it's this guy or someone else. It's also important because Jesus said the coming of false messiahs and false prophets are one of the major signs that the beginning of the birth pangs period has begun. So for this reason, we also need to be watching. Even if you respect these two online teachers, as I do not listen to those that tell you there is nothing to see here. This man is definitely someone to watch. He may turn out to be nothing more than a rabbi, and that would be fine. But he could be a lot more. Now, if you search this rabbi's name, you'll see him referred to as holy, as a gift to this generation, as a, quote, unique and special soul that has descended into the world to illuminate the world, end of quote. He is called all these things by the Jewish community. He's revered in Israel. In fact, to say he has descended implies he came from heaven. That's a very messianic type verbiage. And this is important. This is very important. Please listen to this. He doesn't ask those making these statements to retract them. He allows them, which means he agrees with them. Think about what Jesus said. In John 5:43, he said that he would come in his Father's name, but another would come in his own name and take credit. Now, here is a video of this guy attending a bar mitzvah of a young special needs young man. He seems compassionate to the child, but he's being revered as much more than compassionate for his knowledge of Torah. And as we said, he is beginning to rise in cult status, and I emphasize the word cult. People have been looking to him for him to heal them. To date, 5 miracles have been attributed to him. And for this portion of the video where we're going to talk about the miracles, we have to give a shout out to the Sling and Stone channel, very good YouTube channel by the way, who did some great research on these miracles and provided some of the video for us. These are miracles that many in Israel say, quote, transcend the forces of nature, end of quote. What I liked best about the Sling and Stone's analysis of these miracles is his observation that not a single person witnessing the miracles mentioned God, attributed the miracles to God, or praised God for them. They praised the Yanuka. It was a good observation on his part that this isn't something that comes from God. Remember what we said about Jesus. He comes in his Father's name, but the Jews will accept someone who comes in his own name. Attributing the miracles to God is in some way coming in the Father's name. Attributing the miracles to yourself is coming in your own name. Now, we're not saying this Yanuka is healed anyone. But miracles do happen in today's world. People are sometimes healed, but it is God doing the healing. But that was not acknowledged by this man as far as we could tell. Now, the first miracle was a man who was wheelchair bound and extremely sick. The Yanuka went to him, and the guy now says he's completely fine. Another man met with the Yanuka, and the Yanuka said he would meet his soulmate that day. And that very day, this man met the person who would later marry. Here's the third man who had a malignant tumor, and the tumors disappeared after a conversation, and the Yanuka said that they would be gone, and they were gone. Here's a fourth man who was released from prison before the Sabbath, just as the Yanuka said he would be. Fifth man was about to go into surgery, and the day before surgery he met with the Yanuka, and then the Yanuka said he would be healed, and he was. Hearing these, I'm sure you're thinking exactly what I'm thinking. These aren't the most impressive miracles. There isn't a lot of medical confirmation or other things, and that seems out of the ordinary. However, that doesn't matter. The fact that they aren't impressive miracles doesn't matter. When it comes to false messiahs, what matters is that his followers think of him that way. Remember, this is a false messiah. False messiahs might have false miracles. It just goes along with it. But the Antichrist and false prophet will have miracles so convincing that they would deceive even the elect if that was possible, as we learned at the beginning of the video. So this Yanuka hasn't shown me anything more convincing than having memorized the Torah, which is a pretty big step. So, if this is the guy that the rabbis claim is their Messiah, why isn't he acknowledging it, and why aren't they? It's a good question. Why are they keeping him a secret? Who knows? Perhaps because it isn't time for the beginning of the birth pangs just yet. Maybe God is holding him back so he can be a sign to us of when that period begins. What role would this man play? Well, of course, possibly none. Maybe he's just a rabbi. Or he could be one of the two anticipated Jewish messiahs, because they're anticipating two. Either Messiah ben Joseph or Messiah ben David. There are two anticipated Islamic messiahs as well, a Shia Mahdi and a Sunni Mahdi. The world may soon be filled with messiahs. And if it is, consider it likely as a sign that the beginning of the birth pangs has begun, because Jesus said there would be many false messiahs. Could this Yanuka play a bigger prophetic role? Could he be the false prophet? Well, he hasn't started to prophesy just yet, but maybe he will. The false prophet's the one who performs miracles to get the world to worship the Antichrist, the one who causes the great and small to take the mark of the beast. Could it be this one? Well, it could be. We have no way of knowing yet. Something we need to watch. That's why we shouldn't take our eyes off him. We should keep our eyes on him and watch what he does and says. And could he be the Antichrist himself? A lot of people were thinking that a year and a half ago. Well, maybe. Although I don't believe the Antichrist will be Jewish personally, I have learned that we all need to keep our end-time ideas more fluid than to just reject someone because of their ethnic background. All of us could be mistaken on this issue. We could be mistaken about anything. The Apostle Paul gave us a very concrete sign of how we can know who the Antichrist will be. We said before, he'll sit in the holy place and declare himself to be God. That is a concrete sign. None of us should judge whether someone is or isn't the Antichrist until we see that sign. Then we can know for sure. Till then, it's all speculation. So, when do I personally think the false Messiah of Israel, whether it's Shlomo Yehuda or not, will be revealed? Personally, I think it will be during this Hebraic year. Two prophetic things are likely to intersect around the Feast of Trumpets in 2023. That's still part of this Hebraic year. The first is that 5 perfect red heifers, each 1 year old, are currently in Israel. If any of the 5 are still perfect when they turn 2, right around the Feast of Trumpets, they will be ready to sacrifice. After the sacrifice, the heifer is burned, and the ashes of the heifer are then thought by Jews to purify the priests who will serve in the third temple. In other words, Jews believe the ashes of the heifer will prepare Israel to build its temple. That's a big deal. And although a priest can do the sacrifice, they're thinking it's best for the Messiah to sacrifice the heifer. So this is the first reason that the Messiah may be revealed prior to that time so he can do the sacrifice of the red heifer. Makes perfect sense. The second reason is even stronger. It is that this current year that we're in right now 2022 to 2023, till the Feast of Trumpets 2023, is a year of the Messiah in the Jewish mind. Jews only believe the Messiah can be revealed 1 year out of 7. What they believe is the first year of a 7-year cycle, or week of years. This is huge. Why do Jews feel this way? What makes them believe their Messiah can only come on certain years? Well, click right here to keep watching and find out how this is related to the start of the 70th week of Daniel and the tribulation. I mean, this is a big deal. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.
There's a